Hello everyone, I'm Babla Jonathan and this is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, Cameroon's Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute reassures national and international opinion that the Francophones in the country will not outnumber Anglophones at the upcoming national dialogue convened by the President of the Republic to find a way out of the socio-political and security tensions in the northwest and southwest regions of the country and other socio-political problems affecting the Republic of Cameroon. This is in contradiction to an opinion that had indicated that the Francophones were hijacking the national dialogue announced by the President of the Republic, and the Prime Minister gave this assurance to Barrister Agbo Bala, former ex-detainee of the Anglophone crisis and founder and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, and of course a veteran journalist, Eric Chinji, after his meeting with the Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute in Yaoundé yesterday, said the price for peace should be paid by each and every Cameroonian. Those were our top stories. Contrary to an opinion that has been circulating on social media, triggered by the fact that the list of representatives to the consultations in the nation's political capital from the different regions were mostly made up of members of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement (CPDM) political party to about 80%. The Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon, Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute, has reassured all that Anglophones will not be outnumbered by Francophones at the upcoming national dialogue convened by the President of the Republic of Cameroon and scheduled from the 30th of September to the 4th of October 2019. And the Prime Minister spoke to Barrister Agbo Bala, ex-detainee of the Anglophone crisis, founder and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. And the barrister, speaking to the press, indicated that the Prime Minister reassured him that Anglophones will make up a large majority of the delegates to the national dialogue that will be taking place in Yaoundé. Here's an extract of Barrister Agbo Bala. He spoke to correspondents, colleagues in Yaoundé shortly after meeting the Prime Minister.
Discussed several things. We talked about the inclusiveness of the dialogue, that it was necessary for each and everyone who was concerned in one way or the other to be represented, whether you're a separatist or whoever. If you are invited, you should come. We also talked about the fact that the gross and systematic human rights violations that have been committed by both parties, there should be a measure that accountability is brought into action, because we don't want a situation where such a thing will happen again in this country. We equally talked about the issue of amnesty, taking into consideration the fact that it might be too little too late to have amnesty for the time being, but that during the dialogue the participants could raise the issue. And we talked about the situation in South Africa where amnesty was done upon application. That is something we also raised. But we equally talked about the number of persons who were supposed to attend. We looked at the fact that the perception that mostly Francophones would overshadow Anglophones would also be an issue. But the Prime Minister assured and reassured us that out of about 300 delegates, 200 will be from the Anglophone region. So this is something which is very assuring, because if you follow on social media, there's a perception that most people believe that Francophones would outnumber Anglophones, and because the President himself said this was basically to find a solution to the Anglophone crisis, we felt it was something that we raised. So these and many other issues were the fundamental things that we raised. We also asked him to ensure that those who are coming from the diaspora, those who are involved in separation, should be guaranteed that when they come, they will not be arrested. And he explained in a very typical professorial manner And like in a politician also, that in African tradition, you don't invite somebody in your house and you arrest the person after. So these were things that were assuring, because some of us are in the front line. We talk to our friends who are in the separatist movement, we talk to those who believe in federation, and we talk to those who have apathy with regards to the process. So at least we can be able to explain to them that I came, I saw, and to be honest, I think we should give dialogue a chance. I said on my Facebook page and on Twitter, when the president announced the dialogue, that let us give peace a chance. You know, it would never be perfect. They would have shortcomings.
Barrister Agbo Bala, founder and president of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, speaking to the press after meeting the Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon at the Star Building in Yaoundé yesterday. And a veteran journalist, one of the persons who have been very vocal on the Anglophone crisis, Eric Chinjin, has said the price for peace must be paid by each and every Cameroonian. He was speaking to the press yesterday after meeting with the Prime Minister. Listen to Eric Chinjin.
The purpose of this dialogue is to determine, what needs to change and how are we going to deal with change. Are Cameroonians, 25 million and more of us, willing to accept change? Is every single one of us willing to ask ourselves the question, what will it take? How do I need to change? In what ways do I need to change so that I can contribute to the greater good? These are questions we have to ask in the lead up to this dialogue. I think Cameroonians have been, they somehow feel change has to come from Yaoundé, change has to come from the president, change has to come from some government structure. No, it's far more individual than that.
And a court case pitting the state of Cameroon and some supporters and sympathizers of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM, political party in Konsomba and Imongo Division, Littoral region of Cameroon, has been adjourned to October 8, 2019. The over 54 CRM supporters, through their lawyer, pleaded for College of Lawyers to look into the case, and of course not a single lawyer. We have details in this report by Smart Jikan Gebre.
It was a tight court premises in Konsamba this Tuesday. Over 50 supporters of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement were in court due to the peaceful protest march which they organized some months ago nationwide.
Militants of MRs against the state of Cameroon. So we quite remember that these people were arrested in March because they manifested their right for peaceful manifestation.
The hearing of this Tuesday didn't go to its logical end after the lawyers defending the Cameroon Renaissance Movement supporters made some observations.
The judge manifested some signs of impartiality last time, so this time around we observed to her that there's an application for recusal that has been made against her, and in that case she has to stay at her procedure and then wait for the judgment of the President of the Court of Appeal. And the other observation we also made is that we requested for a collegial bench, because seeing the number of the accused persons, more than 47, we think that for proper administration of justice, 3 judges have to sit to entertain the case, and the President had to suspend the session for 30 minutes.
After 30 minutes of break that the main judge took to look into the observations made by the Cameroon Renaissance Movement lawyers, the case was adjourned to October 8, 2019.
Coming up, Hemin Iluga takes us to Marwa in the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon, where she's going to show us the deplorable conditions in which some pupils and students are studying. Her report.
The hopelessness on your faces speaks volumes. At your very young ages, the children already know they are simply an unlucky folk of your generation. They are children of the nursery, class 1 and 2, who, unlike other school children in the country, have this for a school and a classroom. Seated on blocks in a classroom built with thatches, they are left to study in this way, at the mercy of nature.
On est même exposé dans cette école. Voici.
The lady says the children learn beneath thatches with no benches.
Et il n'y a même pas les bancs.
As an observer, this man says, when it rains, the teaching hours of the day stops. He also mentions that the children are exposed to reptiles and mosquito bites. We got her name as Felicity, a graduate of Enyech Marwa. She is what this community considers as a backbone for these children. Wondering on how she copes in this environment, she reveals her plight. The teacher says she covers 4 to 5 kilometers each day to reach here, and she is the lone teacher who also serves as the principal. She earns 15,000 francs monthly. For sure, getting access to quality education in a conducive learning environment remains a food for thought to this community. But aligned with these worries are other needs. These are young children who, rather than benefits of the rights to education, have today become truck pushers as they go about in search of water. This inhabitant, for instance, outlines the absence of a health center. Hoping for brighter days ahead, they send your plea to the administrative bodies. The inhabitant here says it's not in 2019 that they will move backwards with children in such a situation. He begs on the respective quarters to resolve the situation. Situated in the far north region in the Marwa municipality, the population's look here is henceforth directed towards administrative authorities expected to bring a wind of change for development.
While some are studying in horrible conditions, others lack textbooks in the Mungo Division littoral region of Cameroon. The scarcity of textbooks is adversely affecting the teaching and learning process. Immaculate Fogwe reports.
Several weeks into the current academic year, some textbooks are still not available in Cameroon. Students and pupils are facing difficulties because of the scarcity of these textbooks, adversely affecting the teaching and learning process in the Mungo Division littoral region of Cameroon.
No, cannot easily find in the market. That's very difficult. My mother wants us to exchange with that, but it's not very easy. No, it depends on the place where you are. There are some that we can find, like here, there's some that we cannot find, the other one that we can find.
I am stuck because I'm unable to get half the number of textbooks written on the book list. How will my child begin school without even having the essentials? Just like this mother, several other parents are facing difficulties in obtaining textbooks. Booksellers have continued telling them to be patient. Meantime, those involved in the sale of second-handed books are equally being affected by the situation following the revision of the official book list, a situation which they say has slowed down business.
On nous dit que les livres c'est au moins pour 5 ans. Un an après, on change encore les livres.
We were told that a textbook can be used for at least 5 years, but from what we see on the field, books are changed after 1 year. This is really hampering our business. We are unable to even borrow money from meetings. I don't see a parent removing 30,000 francs CFA and sometimes more just to buy a textbook for a Form 5 student who will use it for just 1 year. At least, if the book could be used for 5 years, he can exchange them with us at a very low cost. The national president of the School Textbook Council, Jean-Paul Common, in announcing a few months back, had promised putting in place measures to ensure the availability of textbooks in the market. Throughout the month of July and the first week of August, some agents are going to visit bookshops and libraries to ensure that the stock is available. We already started work in the West region, precisely in Bafoussam. Next week, we will be moving to Douala. These parents are calling on authorities concerned to put in place measures so as to address the phenomenon of scarcity of textbooks in the Mungo Division of the littoral region.
Cameroon has a long-standing history of palm oil production dating back to the colonial days, but for several years, individual producers and agro companies have not respected sustainable production norms. The adverse impact of sustainable or unsustainable palm oil production on human life and the environment is far-reaching. Since 2012, government and other stakeholders, including the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, have been working to enhance sustainable production of palm oil in the country, and it is for this purpose that the WWF formed the Worldwide Fund for Nature brought together some experts and stakeholders here in Douala today to step up sustainable production of palm oil in the country and to drive individual producers and companies to certification. And now coming up is an extract of an official of the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Jurel Harrison is the policy coordinator.
Idea, or even just like in Cameroon, for example, the issue has never been about sustainability. We've been looking at palm oil more from a perspective of food. It's a food ingredient, and if you look across our different menus, you find palm oil as an essential ingredient. And so the idea has never been about sustainability. Sustainability came in when we started looking at the impacts, especially in the Southeast Asia, that palm oil cultivation had on the environment and on the people. And we thought it was a good opportunity that we start bringing that into the context, especially at the time when Cameroon is importing close to 80,000 tons of crude palm oil to try to meet its structural deficit estimated at about 130,000 tons every year. And you can imagine in terms of economic impacts that is having, especially for our foreign exchanges. From 2012, the government itself took the initiative to put in place a national strategy for sustainable development of palm oil. And that strategy was looking at two things. First, how do you reconcile production, increasing production, but also reducing the footprint of palm oil development on biodiversity and on people. Today, we have companies in Cameroon that have taken the international engagement to move towards certification, towards sustainability. That's the case with Socapam, that's the case with Safacam. And we hope that this process will help bring on board other companies like CDC, like palm oil, like SG Stock, but also smallholders who constitute a big chunk of the production that Cameroon is having.
And palm oil certification is not yet a reality in Cameroon like many other African countries. And we asked Harrison Jurel, policy coordinator of WWF, the importance of certification and how to get there.
Of the global certified palm oil. In Cameroon, we don't have any certification yet. But one thing that has happened in Cameroon for the last 10 years, if I should say, is that we have not seen an extension by the existing agro industries, be it CDC, be it palm oil, be it Socapam, be it Safacam. We have had new concessions that were given out by the government, like the case in the southwest, or you have the recent case in the south. But all these are potential projects, but no project is actually on the ground. So we could say in terms of sustainability, we have not seen extension in the last 10 years or so. We have had more regeneration of aging plantations and need to optimize the existing surface areas that they have to increase their production. Now we have an opportunity with the RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil Standard, to see how to reconcile increasing production and conserving biodiversity while ensuring that it enhances the welfare for the local communities, because that is the bottom line of it. We can't miss the fact that communities depend on this land for their own survival. And so if we're bringing in smallholders, we're bringing in agro industries, it's just an opportunity to try to see how to optimize our production, how to ensure that we stop or we curb import of crude palm oil. It will surprise you that Cameroon, for past 2-3 years, have been importing palm oil from Gabon. I think that should be a shock, right? And you've seen that Gabon has 74,000 tons of certified palm oil, while Cameroon, which has been in production for like 5 decades, we're still to get the first unit of certified palm oil. So we have an opportunity here, and I'm glad that you have companies like Socapam, Safacam that are engaged in that process.
Talking Point is up next. We are receiving a legal mind, Barrister Kamwa Limen, head of the Kamwa Limen law firm here in the economic capital, Douala. You're welcome, Barrister.
Good evening once more, Mr. Babila. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox television. The Prime Minister reassures the population, Cameroonians, and even the international community that contrary to what has been circulating for some days now, Anglophones will not be outnumbered by Francophones. We should recall that the list of regional representatives for the consultations in Yaoundé had circulated and was filled with members of the CPDM, filled with Francophones, and so it gave the impression that the Francophones were to outnumber the Anglophones. But with this assurance, is it good news?
Well, I think it's good news if he's going to respect that engagement. But honestly, it's terrible to see Francophones, and mostly those who did not even believe that there was an Anglophone crisis, running for a dialogue. What do they want to go and dialogue? We have a problem. They should allow us. They should allow us to dialogue and seek for solutions to our problems. It beats my imagination that people like Emmanuel Com, who came here and said there was no Anglophone problems, the governors, everybody was so lukewarm about the issue. Today they think that they can rush to Yaoundé and start talking about dialogue. It is our problem. It's our Anglophone problem. They should allow us to have a dialogue with those who can change the situation. It should not just be a promise that the Francophones will not outnumber the Anglophones. Why first of all would they? Is it their problem? We don't have a problem with Francophones. Anglophones have their peculiar problem. And for once, the government has been honest to accept that there is a problem and that the long-awaited dialogue will take place. But these Francophones, let them take your time. Take your time. Allow us, if we revendicated for our rights, allow us to dialogue. Stop rushing. The governor does not need to rush with people to Yaoundé. CPM does not need to arrest the situation as if they were partisans in a fighting. We have suffered the consequences. Some of us don't go to our villages, and so they should give us a peace.
But the argument advanced by some persons is that it's a national issue, it's a national problem, and the President of the Republic said he wants everybody, all Cameroonians, sons and daughters of the country in and out, to come to the dialogue table, and not just Anglophones. Even though the major issue is the Anglophone crisis.
His priority, the priority in that statement was Anglophone crisis. Who do you dialogue with? You dialogue with somebody you have a problem with. He's not calling Francophones. What will Francophones come and tell him about the Anglophone crisis? We have our problem which is peculiar to us. And therefore it makes no sense that if there's a second part of the debate, of the dialogue, that concerns the entire Cameroon, because Cameroon itself is sick, nobody disputes that fact. But if it's a dialogue called to listen to Anglophones, allow us talk. You people claim there was no problem. You have now got up from your slumber, and today you say there's a problem and you want to participate in the dialogue. They should chill, please.
You earlier indicated that it should not just be an assurance, but it should be what will happen on that day. And we know how this regime has been functioning in the past, where some assurances are given, some things are said, and at the end of the day, it's another thing that is happening completely. But Mr. Agbobala raised this issue with the Prime Minister, who gave the assurance. But are you confident that what the Prime Minister said is what is going to happen?
They don't have a choice. If they call for dialogue, it means they want to resolve a problem. If you want to resolve a problem, then do it rightly. If you don't resolve it, if you don't do the right thing, the problem persists. Do you think they are calling for dialogue out of sympathy, out of good faith? No, they have been pushed to the wall and have called for the dialogue. So he who calls for the dialogue has an agenda. He who calls for the dialogue has a vision. And let us see what the vision is. If it's to solve the Anglophone crisis, which has become suddenly a realism, okay, discuss with the persons involved. Right? Have the dialogue, and then it does not end a dialogue, because when we talk about dialogue, we think that that's the end of it. No, we should be able to implement the results or the outcome of that dialogue. So dialogue is one, and they should allow us.
There's some civil society leaders, there's some political leaders, and some legal minds like yourself who think that what is being organized now, what is going on now with the consultations and of course the dialogue that is to come will not produce the expected results with regards to the way it is being organized.
Mr. Babila, they're consulting for what? You consult to know what is happening, right? Who is not aware of the problem? Who is not aware of the problem? There is an Anglophone problem. The people fighting have said this is our problem. Some of us who don't fight but are Anglophones and we think that federalism is good for us, we have said it. So what other consultation are you going to do? It's just a waste of time. They know the problem. And the problem is either seceding or federalism. That is it. So you are going now to consult what? Just do a referendum and call that those who want to secede, you can, and those who want to we vote. You are consulting what?
And you talked about federalism or secession. Secession is out of agenda as far as the government is concerned. Secession is out of place, and federalism to an extent also, because the members of government have been saying it several times. The president himself said it in his speech. He mentioned decentralization, an indication that the government is bent on decentralization.
Mr. Babila, personally, I don't believe in secession. I want federalism. And let me tell you, it is the government has shown a lot of bad faith since the 1990s. We had the 1996 constitution. There were provisions for decentralization. Why did they not apply this? Why? And now we have gone beyond, to be honest with you, Anglophones have gone beyond decentralization. We want a degree of autonomy. I say it anywhere, I'm a federalist. I like it, I want it. And if the government thinks that for 3 years, Anglophones have suffered. For 3 years, they have stood their grounds. And if the government is coming to look for a solution, it should look for a solution. If not, it's unfortunate, but it's going to drag like this till when such a situation, such a decision will be arrived at.
And we are still at the level of consultations, at the level of the Prime Ministry, at the level of the regional and the divisional headquarters, but at the level of the Prime Ministry, there are some issues that were being raised recently concerning some financial transactions that are said to have transpired between the Prime Minister and some of the persons received. The National Youth Council, for example, had issues between its officials because of certain 3 million francs CFA that transpired when they were received at the Prime Ministry. We have other cases of persons saying that they received money and so on. What do you think about this?
It is to begin with an act of stupidity to give money to people who come for consultation. Are you buying their consciences? If they called me up for such, I don't need to go and take your money. You understand? I come and tell you, if you want to, I tell you what I think about it. Why would they give money in the first place? Don't you think that is that rush for money that I find most CPD and people rushing to collect money? To me, it is not proper. And I just want to use this opportunity to remind the Prime Minister that he is an Anglophone, and that deep in his mind he knows the problems of Anglophones, and that for once he has been given the responsibility for which he will be judged by posterity to do the right thing. And so he does not, to me, nobody is oblivious of the fact that, of the demands of the Anglophones. You are consulting to know what? The issue is federalism or secession. That is a two. That is a two. You are doing all the consultation. What do you want to hear again? When these boys shoot on the street, they tell you that they want to secede. Some others say that no, we want to go back. The origin of our problem stems from the violation, right, between the union between the French and English-speaking Cameroon. You are consulting to get what?
Do you think that the Prime Minister has a free hand in this matter?
If I'm the Prime Minister, I will resign if I don't have a free hand. He has been given a responsibility. He is an Anglophone. He has been given that responsibility to sort out Anglophones. And if you see, each time the Minister of Territorial Administration is an Anglophone. Why in the history of this country is during when there was Anglophone crisis that they will take that minister and give to an Anglophone? So when they push them to the task, we expect them to know that they are Anglophones. And that do what, one day they'll come back to us as our brothers. So it's better to make our regions a better place.
What do you expect from that national dialogue?
I expect that the government will come to a conclusion that it is important, it is relevant that the constitution be revised. Or rather, not even revised, that the original constitution that brought the two countries together, right?
Into a federal system.
Into a federal system. And that's the bottom line. But Mr. Jonathan, come to think of it, why is it so much? Why is there so much fear about federalism? Why? It is a system that works in America. It works in Switzerland. It works in Nigeria. It works. Why are they afraid of it? The French system is just horrible, honestly.
To some, it looks like secession.
What?
Some, especially those who are close to the CPDM or in government and so on, federalism is synonymous to secession.
If it is not. It is not, and if everybody should think like that, then there is no other way you can put into their mind what federalism is. If anybody feels that federalism is secession, then he is dull enough that you cannot put knowledge into his head. It isn't. It's just that the regions are giving the federated states are giving the autonomy
of autonomy.
Autonomy, you understand, and the central administration deals with certain pertinent issues like security, but they give every region, every federated state, the autonomy to take care of themselves. Like I saw just a few minutes ago, you showed a school up north where there is virtually nothing, but that area produces money. Where does that money go to? The money that they're lavishing now in Yaoundé, that people come for consultation and take, where did that money come from? It came from those places. And so we are asking that these areas, where the money comes from, should benefit from the fallouts.
All right, Barrister, before we go, have a last word?
I pray honestly that the Anglophone crisis is taken seriously and that the outcome of this dialogue be meaningful.
Barrister Kamwa Limen, head of the Kamwa Limen law firm here in Douala, thanks for your time. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.